Hey guys, welcome to The Grey Escape. I'm Natalie Gray, and I know it's been a while. I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you about the amazing guest we have on today's show right after this. Hey guys, thank you for your patience. Waiting for this episode. I know it's been a while. Why? Well, I got into a car accident last year, got a concussion, put my life on hold for a little while, and it wasn't super easy to podcast. So that's that. We do talk a little bit about it in the episode today, so I won't go into more details. Let's get on with today's show. I have a very special guest. She should be a Marvel superhero. She's cute enough, and boy, is she smart enough. She would be best friends with Tony Stark. I just know it. Coincidentally, Tony Stark, apparently in his fictional life, graduated from MIT. Well, today's guest is a real-life scientist and researcher from MIT. So there, see what I mean? She so should be a Marvel superhero. Anyway, what she does is pretty complicated, I will be honest with you. So I'm not even going to try and explain it. I'm going to let her do that. Trust me, this is a juicy episode and you're going to want to listen all the way through. So here we go. MIT scientist and researcher and future superhero, Aurélie Jean.
So I was at MIT from 2011 to 2016. I was a scientist over there, a researcher. We call it also postdoc. But I was working on computational mechanics applied to medical applications. So I got my PhD in France, and which is in computational mechanics, which is literally on a daily basis, I develop mathematical models that I implement in code, software, to actually make computer simulations to simulate the world, any phenomena, to understand the mechanism of the phenomena, to make predictions, or even to answer questions. So at MIT, at that time, I was working on heart tissue and brain tissue. And for brain tissue, I was working on traumatic brain injury.
Wow.
So trying to understand the underlying mechanism of traumatic brain injury using computer simulations.
I feel I should tell you at this point so that you're not intimidated that I used to be a karaoke host.
Ooh.
So I just don't want you to, I don't want to take the shine off what you're doing.
Oh, no. No, please.
No, but really I can do a good Doris Day. So just got to get that open. So let me get this straight. You're working with computers and they're making tissue? Am I understanding this correctly? How is this working?
So actually, so how does it work? So for traumatic brain injury, what I did is that I took data from real life, understand how is the geometry, the morphology of the brain, also the elasticity of the brain, and I put all together inside a few mathematical equations, and then I put that in a computer using an algorithm and coding it in a computer, and then the computer is making the simulations to simulate like for instance shock waves going through the brain and trying to understand what is the pressure inside the brain, where is it the maximum pressure, and how we can relate that to outcomes that we see on people experiencing traumatic brain injury.
Do you know what is the spookiest coincidence? Is I'm actually recovering from a traumatic brain injury.
Way.
Yeah, I had a car accident on July the 2nd, and I've been recovering from a pretty nasty concussion. But there's been really weird side effects.
Absolutely. And you have to be very careful. And, one of my best souvenirs in my research on traumatic brain injury was actually one day I received an email from a soldier who went to Afghanistan. And he experienced a traumatic brain injury. He had a traumatic brain injury. And it's very nice. He wrote to me and said, thank you for the research I was doing. And I know exactly what you went through, because I've seen so many people having traumatic brain injury, experiencing different kind of outcomes like depression,
Yeah.
loss of memory, difficulties to sleep, or even anger, this kind of thing that can really disturb you on a daily basis. It's really,
Yeah, it's almost, I mean, I've been seeing a neurologist, and she said it's very actually similar to soldiers.
Exactly.
It's like post-traumatic stress.
Exactly.
So, people who now know me closely, if they're going to make a lot of noise, they have to announce it. So if somebody's going to run the blender, they have to go blending, because if I don't know the big sounds coming in advance, I get like ridiculously anxious about it, like very upset about it. But if they tell me I'm going to run the blender, then I'm fine with it.
Wow.
But I can't be caught off guard with sounds, or it's really upsetting to me. Like,
And you make a point. I mean, it's very similar to soldiers' side effect of traumatic brain injury. We also see those effects with sports, like American football, skiing, all those sports then can, lead to concussion.
Yeah. I have a strange thing as well with coordination, that you know how they do this basic coordination test where you close your eyes. So since the accident, I can't touch my nose with my right hand.
No way.
Yeah. And so, like, I don't know what's going on there. But
well, I'll tell you something.
Okay.
Your brain has what we call brain plasticity, So, in other words, there are many connections in your brain. The neurons are connected to each other and different parts of the brain. And so, when you sleep, you actually rewire those connections, and in the fact that you had a traumatic brain injury impacted maybe some of the connections. And so, but it's not over, because the reality is that your brain plasticity can change over time, can increase. So there are always exercises. It's not my expertise, as you imagine. I'm a computational scientist, not a medical doctor or neurologist, but I know that there are many exercises to actually increase your plasticity and find again your capabilities.
Wow.
There are many things you can do. It's very surprising.
Like what kind of exercises? Like puzzles?
I'm sure. Like this kind of brain exercises or And I have a very, very good friend of mine, actually, Dr. Tara Swart, who is a neuro expert in Oxford. And she actually developed so many strategies to increase your brain plasticity, to be more even. So it was not related to traumatic brain injury, but she did that to actually improve your efficiency on a daily basis as a leader.
Wow.
So,
and it applies from being a leader to a traumatic brain injury. Wow.
So your brain is really something that you can work on,
So I've heard this sort of like a buzz phrase quite a bit now with the neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean?
So this is like neuroplasticity, brain plasticity is the same thing. It's meaning that, again, in your brain, there are neurons, the cells with the long filament, and they're connecting to your brain. And you actually, over time, or when there is an accident or anything, the connections are not as good, but you can still practice to improve the connections, the number of the connections, the quality of the connections. And this is how we can, for instance, it's very funny because I'm the first one to say that if you learn mathematics or if you learn how to code or all those exercises, improve your brain plasticity.
Wow.
So it's just a matter of like brain exercises,
So can you literally make yourself smarter by doing exercises and, let's say, learning more about math? I mean, can you become smarter, or do we have a base level of intelligence that we're kind of stuck with, do you think?
I think we can become smarter by doing those exercises because, in fact, I mean, we've seen, for instance, I don't want to talk about Alzheimer because it's not really my field, but it's mathematics. To me, it's like French or English. It's something that everybody should be comfortable with. And I know sometimes people feel that, I'm not good in mathematics. But I mean, I'm sad when I hear that because in reality, you can always practice, and it's a matter of how you learn, who is teaching you, and which exercise you do. You see my point? I mean, mathematics is really... It's interesting because I was in a conference like a couple of weeks ago organized by Le Point, that is a French magazine, like The Time, And there was Yuval Harari, there, and he said...
I don't know this person, by the way.
He's a historian. I'm so sorry. He's the historian, philosopher, and he wrote Sapiens, the book.
Oh.
And he was saying that to him, mathematics was the universal language, the global language. And I think he's right, I mean, we shouldn't be afraid of that. We should, so when you say, could we become smarter by doing math exercises? Yes, and everybody can, I think.
So you think it works like if you've got these neuroconnectors, that the more you exercise them, they're almost like mini muscles where they would become stronger and you'd get more connectors.
Yes.
So you might actually be able to up your level of comprehension.
Yes.
By actually taxing your brain in certain ways. Like I find that really fascinating.
Exactly. And that's why, for instance, with my grandmother, she's 84 years old and I love her doing some, puzzles or brain exercise, book or anything, because I think it's a good thing for her. It helps her be, I wouldn't say smarter, but, it's a way to fight against years, I don't know how to say that.
Like keep you young.
It keeps you young, yeah.
Stop your brain from aging.
Yeah, exactly. You fight against aging that way. When we think about aging, we tend to think about your skin, your body, but in reality, you can exercise your brain as you exercise your body, and it's very important, I think, yeah.
You can have some of your coffee, by the way. I know it's hard when you're sitting next to a nice cup of coffee. And so you said about math, which I've heard a lot, math as the universal language, because I guess it's sort of like very factual and you can't change the outcomes sort of thing, I guess is why they... But do you feel that music is also a universal language?
Absolutely. And I would even say that's interesting you talk about music, because I always thought that reading music, to me, it's like mathematics. There are rules,
Yeah.
Because to my point, it's very, there are rules, you have to follow the rules. It's very logic. And that's why it's interesting if you look at the most famous mathematicians or scientists, they were also playing music.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, is it Pythagoras who's one of the...
Maybe, yeah, I don't know about him, but maybe, I mean, it's like, for instance, I played piano for many years, and now, I mean, I'm drawing as well, there is always this artistic side of a scientist.
Right.
And I think because scientists and artists are both analytics. Yeah.
I have... sort of researched some pretty fascinating stuff with music and mathematics, which I'll try and explain because it's been a little while. That, for example, with harmonics on a piano, there's a lot of math involved. Like if you take one note and you play the octave higher, it's exactly double the height and width of the sine wave.
Interesting.
It's something like this.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's mathematically connected.
Yes.
And there's also weird number things, which I guess, have you researched much about Nikola Tesla at all in his work?
Tesla, yeah.
And these mathematical things with the 3, 6, 9s. There's some very strange numerical things with music.
Really?
And harmonics, that the numbers are all divisible or they add up to 12. There's there's crazy stuff. If you Google on YouTube.
I'm going to check that.
Yeah, harmonics, numerology.
Tesla, yeah.
There's some very strange rules that all of the numbers are divisible by a certain number, or you add up all of the numbers individually and they all add up to like a 9 or something like this, It's
but
something like
in
that.
your case, friend, you play music.
Yeah, it's
don't
strange.
You think it's, don't you think that it's analytic? There is a strong logic behind?
I know that I feel when I play music, especially since that accident, it's a different part of my brain working because I find it very restful. Because, of course, I write for a living now. And so I can tell that is working and I feel taxed. Mm-hmm. When I write, I feel drained now. Since the accident, it's very tiring.
Yeah.
But when I play music, it's almost like it recharges it back up. So I feel like it's a different part of my brain. I don't know if any science supports that. But for me, it's very soothing doing like playing on the piano or something?
I don't know about music, but there were studies in the past, in a few years ago. It was a collaboration between the German and American laboratories, universities, and they actually analyzed the brain activity of people programming. So they were in an MRI, functional MRI, and they had to read, lines of code and understand them. And they realized from that study that it was systematically the part of the brain that is related to communication, language, So it's interesting. It means that, as I always say, that math, it's a language, And
that's
coding,
interesting. Yeah. What about music? What
so this
did
is
that
a thing.
show?
I don't know. I would love to know which part of the brain, is activated when someone reads some music. And
see, that's probably different than what I'm doing because I'm more noodling.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm not reading music. I'm just playing around almost as well. Partly is because of the coordination thing.
Oh.
So playing with the fingers is very good. My doctor said that's really healthy for me to do that, like to practice because of the coordination.
Yes. Especially after your accident.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's a good exercise.
A weird thing as well is since the accident, and I guess I like researching things, not to your level, but I like researching, looking up stuff. So I looked up loads of stuff with concussions because what I found was I felt like quite a different person afterwards. So I've been entrenched in comedy for like 2 decades. And all of a sudden I was like wanting to do music and write like poetry and put it to music. And so that's sort of been my therapy that I've been doing. But it's just very strange for me because I wasn't doing it before. And now there's this, it's like I have this different interest now in music. Yeah, that I wasn't doing before,
Interesting. Maybe you realize by playing music, it's a way for you to make your brain work in a different way. I mean, it's
even just hearing you saying that, I'm thinking because I believe there's so much intelligence in the body. Our bodies are so smart.
Yes,
maybe it's my body and brain knowing that by playing on a keyboard, a musical keyboard, that it's helping me heal the certain areas of the brain. Maybe my body's that smart. Then it's like, well, let's get her off of doing stand-up comedy for a while. That's not going to help her brain.
Yeah, listening to you, I realized that I should go back to piano, and see how it goes. It has been many, many years I haven't touched a piano, so I should go back and see, how I feel about it, and whether my 10 years of research helped me better play piano. We never know.
You never know. I mean, plus it's such a beautiful thing to do in life. Yeah. Have you dealt much with people who had near-death experiences at all with your work? Near-death experiences where, like, people have died briefly. Oh. It's different than a traumatic brain injury.
No.
I was just curious about those. I had one of those in 2012, and it was very life-changing.
Oh.
And my but kind of actually that one was sort of in a good way. It made me research a lot. It was pretty nuts because I ended up, my blood pressure crashed and I was like ice cold, really, really cold. And I started to speak scientific information. And I'm not like you.
Could you repeat the word, please?
I start the whole phrase, near-death experience.
Near-death, okay.
So it's like you almost died, basically.
Okay, I got it.
But I started to speak scientific information, and I have no background at that time. I knew nothing. I had no interest in science. And the first thing I said, totally like I knew what I was talking about, which in the moment I did. I said, everything is an illusion. It is all our perception of an infinite range of frequencies and vibrations.
Wow.
And I just said that sentence.
Wow.
Like it just came out like that. And then I spoke for I think it's about 45 minutes. And I spent the next 18 odd months researching everything I'd said. Because as you can imagine, this was very freaky for me. And I remembered everything. And I found that everything was true.
Wow.
Everything that I said. So I guess this statement, does this make sense to you? Everything is a frequency and a vibration. This is actually a scientifically accurate statement, right?
Yeah, I think
it's factual. It's a real statement,
It's very interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wondered if you'd happened upon people to do with that. But I would think a lot of people with traumatic brain injuries have probably also had near-death experiences. But
maybe,
you know,
I always focused at that time on really the mechanism of traumatic brain injury. And it was, at that time at MIT, my research was funded by the US Navy and the US Army.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because the research, we were a few people working on this topic, in my lab, and it was very interesting because everything we did can be applied to any traumatic brain injury.
Wow.
And especially, I think it's a big deal in sports like NFL, American football.
Yeah, they had the movie Concussion.
Yes,
exactly. Brilliant. With
exactly.
Will Smith.
So this is true, we have to be very careful and we have to understand those injuries because, the consequences are really bad,
I know somebody who had, and again, I don't know if you've experienced, they had open heart surgery, and afterwards their personality changed the same way as people have personality changes after a concussion.
Wow.
And they became very short-tempered, angry, paranoid. And I wondered if you've come across that, because then when I went to research that, because it's somebody I know, and it's a thing that you can have personality changes after you've had open heart surgery.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never read about that.
Yeah, it's freaky.
No, I've never. The research that I did on the heart was more trying to use mathematical modeling and computer simulations to improve the techniques of regenerating a myocardial tissue, the muscle of the heart in vitro, in the lab. So in other words, when someone experiences like a heart attack, some cells are dying. And so in response to that, the cells that are in charge of creating the collagen of the muscles are creating more and more collagen. So because of that, the muscle becomes stiffer. Then the heart has more difficulties to contract. And so some people, many labs actually are working on how we can recreate in the lab, in vitro, a muscle, a cardiac muscle.
My
so
gosh.
Actually, I worked with Professor George Engelmeyer at that time, and my simulation helped him improve the technique, which was great.
So your simulation is doing it in a computer?
Yes.
And then just somebody else copies it and tries to put it in practice in like a petri dish and grow a heart or something?
Yeah, you make a point. Actually, from my simulations, we understood how to improve the techniques of growing those cells, in vitro. And so then we could actually do it in real life, in the lab, and trying to demonstrate that the simulations did address correctly the problem, And but still, it's still research. It's not, it's not used yet on human, but I think it will be eventually.
And is your specific area is it like anatomical where you're dealing with human organs, or is yours all sorts of things?
All sorts of things.
Okay.
So I worked for 7 years for medical application. I might work again in the future, actually. And I also used my skills in a totally different field, which is finance and economy. And before that, I was also working on engineering, like elastomers, this kind of thing. So really think about my field as, think about mathematics as something you can apply to every single field to understand, mechanism and to actually answer questions and sometimes solve problems.
So you're literally kind of basically, if I understand this correctly, you're figuring out the math of the heart.
Exactly. Nature, think about it. Everything that happens around you can be described mathematically, Sometimes you might not find, the right equations. You might not find, just because you actually model mathematically what you see, and sometimes what you see is not really what it is, you see. So it's really, mathematics to me is everywhere. And that's why I was very, very happy and pleased when Yuval Harari said that mathematics is the universal language, because I'm pretty sure it is.
So where do you even begin to figure out the math of the heart? I mean, my first thought is just, okay, let's start with a pulse. It has a pulse.
So
that's mathematical.
Yes, it's mathematics. So what I did is I was working at the cellular level, so very small, and I was not making the heart cell contract. But what I was doing is that I was actually, the mathematics in my model were in two things. One is the geometry. I developed a mathematical description of the geometry of the cells in the heart. Wow. And then I developed like a mathematical description of the elasticity of the cells, because when they contract, actually, they deform.
Wow. You sound like a very valuable person.
I hope so.
You sound like the kind of person we watch movies about where there's a woman and only she knows how to make a heart and like the world's coming to an end and they have to go and get you. I mean,
she's going to save the world.
Yeah. I mean, are there many of you?
Oh my gosh. I wish, but unfortunately, I mean, at my level, with at least 10 years of experience in computational science, we're only 3-5%. So it's also one of the things I'm working on,
But you're saying that's meaning women.
Women.
Right.
Oh,
yes,
sorry.
you mean 3 or 5. But I mean, how many people are even doing this, what you're doing?
Oh, you would be surprised. Many people, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess I'm in the wrong crowd. But I know a lot of comedians, which is really useful. If you're having a heart attack, someone's going to make a really good joke.
Entertainment is extremely important. Because I can see that on a daily basis. It's something that makes you feel better, make you feel good.
Right, anti-stress.
Yes, absolutely. And make you dream.
Yeah, that's right. Give you something to aspire to.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, how old were you when you thought, I'm going to be this brainy girl?
When I was a little girl, actually, I mean, I was good in math and physics, so to me it was, I
see.
It was obvious. And then it was at my first year of college when I saw my professors. They looked so smart to me. I really wanted to be like them, and so I just checked what they did to be as smart as they look. And so I realized that they had a PhD. I didn't know what a PhD was at that time, so. And then I decided, yes, I want to do a PhD. I want to be like them. I want to be, I don't know if I'm as smart as them, but at least, I was happy to do my PhD. And, I always say it's interesting when people ask me, why do you do science? Why? And I always say, because I have the power. I have the power to understand the world. I have the power to simulate the world and to help the world be better. And to me, it's so important. And that's why also I'm a strong advocate of science in schools, or science. Like, I want people to understand a little bit about science, how it works, so they can better understand technologies, they can better understand their rights and what they can do to help the producers of those technology to create better technologies for people.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't help but picture you as this, like, little girl that was, like, strange in the neighborhood, like where you're bouncing balls down the street and taking measurements, and other people are like, would you just throw the ball back? And you're like, hold on, I'm watching the fall and the velocity of the ball. Were you like that? I mean...
No, it's funny. I was not like that. Well, I had glasses very early, that's true. But still, no, I was not like that. No, I've never, I think I'm not, it's interesting you say that, because usually people have in mind a person like a nerd person. I mean,
yes.
I'm a nerd, obviously, because, I have a very high emotional intelligence, but I'm a nerd. But still, people tend to think that, the people behind this computer, they're so strange, they don't talk to each other, they're very shy. And you know what? They're not like that, Of course, you will find this kind of people, like anywhere else. But in reality, none of my friends are like that.
You look really normal.
Oh, thank you.
You look such a normal person.
Thank you, Natalie.
You almost look like you could be a comedian, actually. The way you're dressed is so casual.
Wow.
That's like a comedy uniform with just comfortable clothes, And are your friends? Do you have scientist friends? Or?
Many, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, they're normal. Yeah, so, but... I'm happy you say that, because most of people think that way, and I think we should try to check around, this picture of, and try to show another kind of
Yeah,
picture.
you're absolutely right. Like that show, have you seen Mr. Robot?
Mr. Robot.
Yeah,
yeah,
they
I've
have
heard about that.
hackers, and there's
Yes.
a girl in it who's very pretty, and
Yeah.
she's like a super hacker and stuff.
Good point.
Yeah.
Here we go.
See,
Yeah.
that's what you're like.
We should do that.
Yeah. Don't forget your coffee.
Yes,
I
thank
feel really
you.
guilty.
Thank
you know
you.
what? I have, this is my level of technology here. I have coffee warmers. Do you want your coffee put
I
on a
love-
coffee
can I have
warmer?
one? I
yeah,
love
yeah,
that.
hold on. Now, I'll have to put it over here, and then you'll have to get it intermittently. Okay, so
I have to
coffee
put it-
has to go there.
Okay.
But at least it'll be warming up, and you can, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, see?
It's kind of like being at NASA
Hey,
in
technology,
my studio. I have a
right?
coffee warmer. Yeah, it is technology.
Technology.
You know. So, right, the heart and its math and everything. Okay. And the PhD, how long, how do you get a PhD, and how long does that take in your life?
So, so usually it's between 3 and 5 years, you know, and it's a lot of work. It's hard. I mean, at least I felt it was hard, you know.
You have to basically practice what it is you're going to plan to do, right? Is that the point of it?
Exactly. Yeah, you start with a problem to solve.
Okay.
And it's interesting. Usually it's a research problem. So what do I mean by research problem? It's a problem for which you don't know whether there is a solution.
Okay.
And if there is, you don't know what it is. So
I see.
it's very research to me, a PhD, you know, is really to me is the best training in the world to develop your critical sense, to develop your humility. Do you say that in English? Humble, like
Humility.
humility, because you always work on things that you don't know about. You always work on problems for which you don't know whether there is a solution. You see my point? It's really something that, okay, you have to remain open-minded and flexible over the years to be sure, to make sure that you have something to defend at the end to get your PhD.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what's it, you said you were at MIT, was it about 6 years, 5 years?
A little bit more than 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's it like there? I mean, I've never been, but it's one of those, it's a bit like Area 51, where there's a mystique. For people who haven't been there, there's this mystique about it. Like, what's it really like in MIT? What is it like?
You know, it was really the place that I loved the most. I really liked it because in my research, because first of all, the place is amazing. This is in Boston, by the way, and I love Boston. It's my second home. And also, MIT is just an amazing place where it's very inclusive. You know, whoever you are, whatever is your culture, your language, your outfit, we don't care. You are part of MIT. You know what I mean? And also in terms of research, I've met so many amazing professors, scientists, and students, you know, because I did teach a little bit over there. And I this past summer, I did teach at the Sloan, the business school. And it's always, to me, I love like teaching over there because students are very involved and they're very curious. And also something that we tend to forget is that at MIT, there are 50% of girls, 50% of boys in college.
Oh, is that something that they have to enforce, or is that just how it works?
Yeah,
Sorry.
so in the 90s, actually, MIT decided to, to have a proactive strategy to actually attract girls to MIT because they really wanted to have 50% of girls, 50% of boys. And it was interesting because at that time, everybody else was saying, oh, this is the end of MIT, you know, because they want to have more girls and, you know.
Well, that's nice.
That's very nice.
Positive
That's very
outlook.
positive, right? Because we tend to think that boys are, you know, better in math than girls, whatever. And, well, if you look at the ranking of MIT today, they're not bad, right? They're really good. So, and so it's very good because thanks to this proactive strategy to attract more girls in college, now they have 50% of girls, 50% of boys without doing anything because, you know, people know that MIT is the place where you can go. Girls have no, they don't limit themselves, you know, they apply to MIT. And so it's a very unique university to me for that because I've been, I did teach over there and I could see how girls and boys were working together, were behaving to each other. And I think it's very important, especially in science and engineering, that we have this kind of, diversity, I would say. Yeah.
I take it they got along well.
Yes.
Right, right. And how young do people start going? Because don't they have summer camps? Like, is this correct that I remember reading like a long time ago something like Bill Gates funds these camps for like literally really smart kids who may even actually be autistic, but they're super geniuses.
Yes.
Okay.
You're right. I mean, during the summer, there is no school, obviously. But as a researcher, you're still on campus, you work, but there is no classes, there is no students. So instead, we use the classroom and the MIT campus for summer camp. And you're right, summer camp for extremely genius kids, but also for any kids. There are different summer camp on, like, I don't know, coding or robots building or anything, or chemistry or nature, to understand nature,
That's
biology.
The most exciting way I've ever heard someone say chemistry.
Oh,
and I could see you as well. The listeners can't see you. Your face just like shone when you said chemistry.
That's funny. But, and I think it's important because to show those kids, and it's so nice because some of them are like 7 years old, like 14 years old, whatever, and they come to the campus. They spend so much fun time. And they actually, it's a way to develop a good idea, a good picture of science, because I want those kids to have a nice picture of science, to have like, oh, I can do it, and not feel, oh, I cannot do it because I'm a girl, or, oh, I cannot do it because, I'm not as nerd as the other one. No, I mean, this is for everyone, and they also realize the power of science, which is, again, the power to understand the world, the power to change the world, so I think it's like being a superhero, right?
It is, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you're also getting information that's not readily available to most people.
That's true.
You're on the cutting edge of possibility.
Yeah.
And are there a lot of autistic kids who go there to these summer camps?
So it's interesting because I've read a long time ago a study showing that, autism, it's a spectrum, you know that. So in other words, we're more or less on the spectrum, but depending on the level, you can see it or not on people. And so I read a long time ago that it was like 20 or 30% of people on MIT campus, were on the
spectrum.
Yeah, but you know what? I think I am too, and
really?
I think so, because well, you're normal when you're autistic. It's just a matter of how you handle it.
I guess so.
The spectrum is so broad, so it's really a matter of sometimes someone who is really, and again, I don't want to say anything because I'm not an expert, in that thing, but I'm pretty nerd. I know it. When I talk to my friends who are like mathematicians or scientists, it can become really crazy. And I talk about so many things that are totally abstract to most of people. But
I can imagine.
Yeah. but it's really a matter of how you handle it, and how. So I don't really know about autism because, again, I'm not an expert. I don't want to say things that I don't have credential to talk about, So.
But you obviously know people who are on that spectrum as well then from your work. And then, so maybe having a little bit of autism is kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Or actually having a decent amount of it. There's obviously a lot of pluses if these, one of the characteristics is that you have this heightened intelligence.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe we need autism to help the evolution of the planet because
that's a good point.
Yeah, there could be ideas that people who don't have autism would never come up with.
Maybe. But again, I don't want to make any statement because I'm not, I'm not an expert and I don't want to. And
I'm certainly not. But I really know the best tunes at the karaoke bar.
Oh, good for you.
So artificial intelligence now, that's it's another buzzword, isn't it? And now we're getting it in our homes because we've got all these the Google Home, the Apple Home, the Alexa, which is a little bit scary to me. They did the thing on Ellen where somebody said, Alexa, are you connected to the CIA? And Alexa shuts herself down.
No way.
Yes, it was on Ellen. It was really a freaky thing.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm a little nervy of that technology that in my phone even. How do I know that somebody's not hacked in my phone and they're watching back through the camera at me.
Yeah.
Apparently there's a video of Mark Zuckerberg, and even he has black electrical tape over the webcam, over his webcam.
I do that
because
too.
he doesn't. You do it too.
Yeah.
So, see, and you guys know stuff we don't know.
So you make a point. I mean, I believe that every single person should understand the basic underlying mechanism of those technologies. And I say that because, as you say, you might be easily scared by the things you've read, you've learned, you've heard, and you really want to understand the truth and what you can do to fight against those risks. And that's why I'm a really strong advocate of people understanding, this kind of mechanism. What is artificial intelligence? What is a computer? What is a code? What is a machine learning? What is all those things together? They can help them on a daily basis use better the technologies. I like to say that I want people to become power user of the technologies. This is my point, because I really want people to understand their rights, and what they can do. And to me, it is so important.
I mean, where do you draw the line in your life at the smart technology? Have you got one of these smart home gadgets?
No.
And why don't you? Is it because...
it's interesting because if you listen, Steve Jobs, for instance, he didn't want his kids to be in front of a computer before 8 or 10 years old. Wow. There is a reason for that, because a kid of 6 years old should not be in front of a computer or screen, too much. And so, no, I don't have any... smartwatch. I don't have any. I have a Google, thing at home, but I never connected it. I mean, it's still in the box. I mean, I don't want those things. I'm not really interested in that. But
is there a level of distrust, and that's why you're not?
Maybe, yeah. But that being said, I think those things can really help you on a daily basis, help you in your life, in organizing your life. But that being said, you have to understand how it works, and you have to understand the in and out, and understand your rights. Because again, I mean, to me, it's so important that people, for instance, when we talk about the big company like Facebook, Google, Amazon, all those companies, they're great. They're doing a great job, and sometimes they're not doing a great job. And people are always complaining. They're always and at the end of the day, people are still on Google, are still on Facebook. And so it's interesting because I like to tell people that, you know what? Those companies exist because we are using them.
Right.
And so just keep that in mind, because, and again, I'm a huge fan of Google. I love those tools, but sometimes it's important to investigate, to explore other options, because we want to be able to use other options. We want to be able to understand our rights, and all the things. But again, to me, it's a matter of education. It's a matter of understanding how it works.
I mean, a huge issue with the development of this artificial intelligence is privacy, right?
Yeah.
Because it's invasive. I mean, we have refrigerators now that will monitor what you're eating and tell you when you're out of milk and stuff. And smart homes where you walk through and it knows what music to play. And so for it to learn all this stuff about you, it is basically observing. And another word for observing is spying.
Exactly. So the thing is that I don't mind a company is collecting my data to improve my experience. I don't mind. I do mind if the company collect my data to sell my data for marketing purposes, and that's why I actually, I really want to have the option to pay to use tools. So let me explain. For instance, I don't know, Google. I wouldn't mind paying like a few dollars a month, to use Google and make sure that my data is just used to improve my experience instead of other purposes for which I wouldn't agree. But right now, you don't have this option. You can only use Google for free or any other tool. You see my point?
Yeah, I've noticed a weird thing with all of the web browsers lately. Well, what I'm using anyway. that's kind of freaky is I'll be on a website or a blog or something, and the ads that are coming up are so specific.
Of course.
And it just, that makes me kind of feel a little uncomfortable because I'm like, how do they know that I was looking for this? And, you know, it's like they know the kind of person.
Yeah.
How do they know I need a cover for a 61 key keyboard?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. You see my point. So, but you want the browser to actually understand you, to better provide you with answers to your questions, but you might not want the browser to use that to send you advertise. You see my point? So, but right now we don't have any option. You know, the only option that you have is not using this web browser and use another one that is not sending you advertisement or this kind of thing. But to me, we should have more options. This is the thing that I say, you know, and that's why I always say, I mean, why not paying like a couple of dollars as we do for Netflix? Why don't we pay why don't we have the choice to pay a few dollars a month to be able to use Google or any other tool for a certain amount of hours? I don't know. I don't have numbers in mind, but I would like to know, you know.
And not be monitored.
Yes.
Right. So maybe that'll be a thing in the future, that maybe privacy will be such a commodity that we will pay a surcharge for a level of privacy in our life.
Maybe. And it doesn't have to be expensive, you know. I mean, it's like, but I would like to know my options. This is the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that you haven't activated your Google
No,
thing.
it's still in the box.
So I can't remember the name of the movie. My strange memory glitches, but it was a sci-fi a couple of years ago where you would go into a chamber and it would fix your body. You'd lie down in it and it would basically like fix your body. It looked like a hyperbaric chamber. I mean, with what you're doing, the development, if you can sort of ultimately you're looking to grow a heart, I mean, this is basically going to happen at some point, isn't it? Like whether it's 10 years, 20 years, you're going to be able to grow a human heart.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And, you know, it's a good thing.
Maybe it's even now and you're just not allowed to tell me.
No worries.
It hasn't been done yet.
No. But it's a good thing. Yeah. But, you know, I think it's a good thing because let's say that one day there will be like robots, you know, that are doing surgery, like entirely, you know, entirely. I think that, which by the way, it's already the case for some part of the surgery, you know, but we still need surgeons because surgeons are here to make a decision. Let me explain. I as always say, those technologies are providing you with a solution, are providing you with a process, you know, but you are the only one to make a decision. I always say that, you know, I mean, it's like when you look at radiologists, do you say that? Radiologists. Now, I mean, for, you know, since many years ago, they've been using softwares to actually detect tumors.
Wow.
But at the end of the day, they make the decision whether it's a tumor. You see my point?
Right.
And that's why the human will be always important in this artificial intelligence process. And I strongly believe in that.
Oh, now I have to put my sci-fi brain on and play devil's advocate and think that the artificial intelligence could surely end up being more intelligent because it's got the backup of computers that are going to be accelerating and we've just got our primitive brain. Although it's amazing, surely it can be outdone one day by processes.
So it's not going to happen. And you know why?
Oh, come on! It's a brilliant theory. Come on!
Okay. Well, there will be amazing movies about that, which is good. But no, it's interesting because I wrote like a couple of weeks ago, I wrote an article about what you mentioned, which is the theory of singularity, which is a point in a time, you know, in the future where artificial intelligence will be much more intelligent than human. And they might control us.
Yes,
that's you love that. Saying. Yeah, I know. I like in the movies. Well, it's not going to happen for many reasons. I believe it's not going to happen just because there is one thing that we'll need to simulate, and we're not capable of doing it.
Reproduction.
No.
Oh, but that was such a good guess. Come on. Okay.
It's actually simulating entirely the brain.
Oh.
Because even though we are capable now of building robots that are doing and building artificial intelligence that are able to do things much more efficiently than human, still they don't have what we call general intelligence. So they don't feel it. They don't have emotions. They don't have sympathetic, empathy. And simulating the entire intelligence, the entire brain, means understanding the entire brain, and it's not going to happen. Even if we have like the amazing computer capabilities, it's so abstract that I don't think it's going to happen. And so I'm not very worried. And by the way, even though you can find scientists or people that say they are scientists that they would say, oh yeah, it's going to happen, blah blah blah, and I have also an exact date for that. Well, it's not possible. I mean, it's most of the scientists do not believe in singularity, but they work on a daily basis in their research to reach that point because it's very stimulating. Trying to, when you work on a research project in which you want to try to make a computer feel something, even though you don't reach it, you know that everything you're going to do to reach that point is going to be useful, impactful for other fields.
Now, I have no scientific training whatsoever, but I'm going to present an argument to what you just said.
I'm ready.
I'm going to give you your coffee. Hold on.
Thank you.
Which will be nice and warm. There
Thank
you go.
you.
So, apparently, when we feel pain, it's actually just our brain telling us that there's something going on. Like pain is made in our brain, right?
Absolutely.
So if pain is made in our brain, why couldn't you then program this computer to think that it has pain?
Absolutely. So pain is actually we know a lot about pain, as you mentioned. We know exactly what's happening in the brain. We know exactly the stimuli. We know everything. I mean, not everything, but we know a lot about pain. So we might be able to simulate pain in a robot, but still it's not, we simulate it, it doesn't feel pain. You simulate the pains. It's very different. It's like, simulating sadness. You can easily have a robot that is like, have a sad face when when the robot sees a human being feeling sad, because he can recognize on the image that the human being is sad.
Right.
But it's simulation. It doesn't feel any sadness. You see my point?
Here's a giant question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is for every conspiracy theorist who is listening right now.
Go ahead.
How do you know that we're not the simulation?
I was waiting for that question. Well, I cannot answer that. That's a very good point. And that's why you make a point again, because working on those things, working on artificial intelligence, working on reaching the singularity, invite you to think about those things. Who we are, what is intelligence, are we simulations, if you want? All those questions that help scientists, people, society, and universe grow. It's interesting, right? I
mean, it's very thought-provoking.
Because what is intelligence?
Exactly. What is intelligence?
Before thinking of simulating intelligence, what it is? Is it like doing math quickly? Well, if it's that, we have machines who are doing that faster than us. Is it feeling emotions? You see my point?
I mean, if I had to describe intelligence, this would be my layman's description, is your choices in how you react to things.
Wow.
That's probably about it.
So it's pretty complex. It's pretty abstract.
It's constant stream of choices that you're making in your life and whether you make good choices. But
it's very, very hard to simulate that. You see my point?
It depends how good a programmer you are. I mean, what if, here's another, to top that other theory, we could be the simulations of simulations.
Oh.
We could be like you could be third generation Aurélie.
Wow. Maybe.
I mean, how would we know? How would we know, right?
That's a very... you've seen the movie Matrix, right?
I did see it,
yeah.
yes.
This is exactly that. And it's interesting. I cannot answer. It's pretty hard.
Do you know about, I'm sure you've heard of the theory of the holographic universe, right?
No, what is...
It's the theory that the universe is a simulation.
No way.
That we're literally in a simulation, like basically a giant...
I'm going to check that.
Yeah, virtual reality world. And there's a tremendous amount of information on it. Elon Musk, who is the very wealthy, smart guy who owns Tesla, is my main fact I know about him. But he said there's like a 1 in a billion chance that we're not living in a simulated reality. So there's quite a lot of people, if you Google it, holographic
I'm
universe.
Check that.
Yeah. And the reason this is one of my little pet topics, is because when I had my near-death experience, because the first words I said was everything is an illusion, and I went on to describe all this scientific stuff that then I researched with physicists and scientists, and I traveled quite a bit, and I've had people on my podcast who are like sound scientists in frequencies and vibrations, and everything that I was talking about in this experience was all true. So, yeah, I guess it's just that it becomes, well, let's say, look at what's going on in video games right now. So in our lifetime, we've gone from playing ping pong to virtual realities. And we're talking, this is just a few decades. So imagine how advanced the virtual simulations are going to be, not just say in 100 years, God willing, the planet will still be here in 1,000 years. But imagine where technology would be in 1,000 years. Look what you have done in your lifetime. You're working on growing up art in a matter of a few years. Think of. You know what is my dream in terms of technology? And I don't think I'm going to see it because I don't think it, maybe in long-term future it will happen. Teletransportation? Oh, yeah, teleporting.
Yes.
Come
teleporting.
on.
Yes, sorry, teleporting. This is really my dream.
Oh, teleporting.
I'm waiting for it because teleporting is just, to me, I don't know if it's going to happen, but this is my dream.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Beam me up, Scotty, right now. Like literally, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
This is my dream just because I have friends all over the world and I want to, I want to work in New York. I want to sleep in Paris.
Wow.
I want to spend my weekends in Los Angeles. I want to... You see my point? And
of course I see your point.
Yeah.
But what about this then? What about if you're teleporting, time travel?
This I would be scared. Just because one of my favorite movies, Back to the Future, and I saw the disaster of time traveling. So that's why.
Well, there is that. But maybe we could be invisible when we time travel.
Oh, invisibility. This is my other dream. Yes.
And I mean, invisibility seems to be something... Surely this isn't that hard. I mean, because you can vibrate something so that you can't see it by the naked eye. So we could vibrate all our particles.
It's interesting because the theory, we understand it. We know exactly how it works because I remember I've met like a few years ago in Boulder, Colorado, like a team was working on that. And the theory is known. It's now more about how we can... do it in practice. So, but this is, invisibility, this is another thing that I would love to have with teleporting.
Yeah. Well, I still would quite like the time travel part of it.
Oh, time travel? Why?
It'd just be really fascinating to go back, for example, even just a couple of 100 years to talk to people, to hear how they speak. I've researched quite a lot about language and the words. So many words, like thousands of words, even in the English language, for regions, let's say the United Kingdom, they come into and out of fashion. And that really fascinates me. Like there's so many words we use today that weren't even around at the time of our grandparents, and expressions and that kind of thing. And there's crazy expressions they had in Victorian times that they don't have now. Like words die. And I just find that really interesting. Words die. People just stop using certain words and expressions.
That's true.
So I'd find that interesting. Going to a pub 200 years ago and talking to people.
Though it would be for research purposes. Too.
Yeah, I guess for research purposes.
Yeah.
And of course, there would be the gambling element where
gambling. Don't do that. Like in Back into the Future.
But that would be such a great thing.
No. We should, if we can do that one day, time traveling, we have to have rules.
Rules, but I would be a rebel, and I would be in the underworld of time travel, where I'd be like a billionaire because I gambled in the past.
Back to the Future. I love that movie. It's exactly that. Yeah.
Gosh. And so, I mean, here's another brain question. What's the whole deal with us only using 10% of our brains?
So I think I've read or I've heard recently that it was not exactly the case. It was a little bit more. But then I think that we can have more opportunities by having more part of our brain working, but I don't know.
But how do we get it working? Now, come on. I know you know secrets.
Oh, you mean how do we know?
Well, more like how do we get more of our brain going?
Oh,
like we've got this lump in our skull and we're only using approximately 10% of this wet mush.
Well, this is what's about brain plasticity, how you can not only improve the connection, improve the number of connection, and improve the area of your brain that works, real time. So exercises, I would say.
I mean, have you had some outstanding statistical thing happen in your projects where you've done puzzles with people and they get super smart?
No, I didn't do that. I wish I did. No, I didn't.
I mean, that's what I want to know is like how we can suddenly was it the movie Lucy? Was that what it was with Scarlett Johansson?
Yes,
was that the name of the film?
Exactly.
And she suddenly had access to her full brain.
I remember. Yes.
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 So, I mean, why isn't that possible? Why can't we use our full brain?
I don't want to make any statement because it's not my expertise, this kind of thing, but I've heard that it takes a lot of energy to have your entire brain working. And so it would be exhausting in a way.
Oh, that makes so much sense to me, especially since my concussion.
Oh.
Because I've been hyper aware at how I get physically very tired when I've used my brain.
Really?
Yeah, so I have to have like little naps like a toddler.
Interesting.
I really crash.
Yeah.
So, but I also have this thing called hyperfocus, which makes me feel a bit. Have you heard of hyperfocus?
Yes.
So I didn't know what it was, and I went to the doctor, and I was to my neurologist, and because I had like so many bizarre things, and I'm like, I have this like hyperfocus where I can't stop writing, and she goes, "Yeah, it's hyperfocus," and I was like, "No, but literally, I'm like hyperfocused, and I can't stop," and then I just crash out, and she's like,
Wow.
"Yeah, it's a thing, it's hyperfocus."
Yes.
So I've had this.
Interesting.
So I'm like this cycle going up and down of intense focus and activity.
And this is exhausting, right?
It's so exhausting.
Yeah.
Like so tiring. But
Yeah.
that's just my brain working.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even a tiny bit kicking in now because I'm talking to you and the conversation is stimulating, especially when we said time travel. It's like now I'm using an extra % of my brain and I'm feeling my body like fueling that brain. So would this make sense then? Tibetan monks who sit meditating and they spend their whole day in a state of meditation. Well, apparently they get very heightened states of consciousness where they can perceive things at a much higher level than us who are on our iPhones all day. Do you think then there would be a correlation that their physical energy, because their bodies are in a state of relaxation, deep relaxation, all that energy then is going to the brain and allowing their brain to access more regions? Oh, yeah.
I don't know that, but I know one thing. Because I did meditation, I should do it again, actually. And meditation is really good because it also helps your brain plasticity. I think there were studies actually analyzing the brain activity of monk, and while meditating. And meditation is really good to help connections, rewire your brain. So it's interesting. Meditation is good, yeah. So math plus meditation.
Wow. I had some freaky stuff that I got to do when I was in the UK. When I was going through the research of this science stuff from my experience, a lot of very strange synchronicities were happening in my life after this near-death experience. And I researched, and everything that was happening with me it was noted phenomena online with other people who had near-death experiences.
Wow.
I would blow out electrical objects like light bulbs, and hard drives and my car battery. I don't even know. Well, the electrics in my car, a lot of stuff for about 5 days afterwards. Yeah, there was this strange electrical thing going on, and so much stuff was breaking. And I looked online, and so it was as though my actual frequency was different.
Really?
Yeah. And then these coincidences would happen. Like, for example, I was in Marina Del Rey and I was talking to my partner and I said, I think I would really like to go to Tibet. And we turned around the corner and the Dalai Lama was standing there with a bunch of his monks on a dock in Marina Del Rey. Yeah. And that's a strange coincidence.
Interesting.
But it was happening all the time. I remember, and this is very shortly after the experience, really absurd synchronicities. I would put on a body lotion and go, what am I doing? So I had a heightened awareness, awareness of everything. And I suddenly realized, wow, we put body lotion on and it's got all kinds of chemicals and we don't even question it. We just go buy a lotion, put it on our skin that goes into our bloodstream and our liver, and we don't even think about it. I thought, wow, I need a body lotion that I know doesn't have chemicals. I walk out of my apartment at the time. A total stranger comes up to me. She had seen a T-shirt I was wearing and commented on it. She reaches her hand out and she goes, hi, I don't want to say the lady's name either, but she goes, hi, my name's so-and-so, so-and-so. And I make all natural body lotions with no chemicals in them whatsoever. So I would think something and it would happen. Now that's mathematic. There's some maths there, right? In synchronicity.
Interesting.
There's some kind of a mathematical equation. There's got to be a correlation there.
It's interesting because I always say that things happen for a reason, and so think about it.
I mean, if you were making a simulation of a virtual reality game, you would have to factor in coincidence.
Yes.
Because we all experience
serendipity.
You would have to design in your game formula this avatar. Every 1,000 hours of play is going to have some little quirky synchronicity happen that makes them go, huh.
And a good simulations actually have serendipity, meaning that even though you can have a deterministic simulation, you always want to have some statistics, randomness, serendipity, because nature is about serendipity as well, right? You don't want to live in a society that is entirely deterministic, I think.
Deterministic.
I
don't know if I know what that means.
So deterministic means everything is done for a reason. Everything is, deterministic, meaning, how could I explain that? It's the opposite of randomness.
Where it's already laid out in front of you. So we're just living along a something that's already been designed.
And you can play with technologies about that. For instance, when I go, last time I went to Venice, in Italy, I did turn off my GPS because I wanted to be lost in the city, And we don't do that anymore. We just look at the GPS and, we want to be sure that we are on the right street and we want to take the shortest way to go to this point, blah, blah, blah. And, serendipity is good.
Yeah, well, it's always exciting when you have a coincidence.
Yes.
I like coincidences a lot. And I do find the more you pay attention to coincidences, there tends to be more of them happening.
Yes.
I've just remembered as well, so this is part of now how my brain works. So what I wanted to say before with the freaky things in the UK is, by coincidence, I happened upon this very famous college in London called the College of Psychic Studies. Oh. And it's been around, I think, since like 1884. Wow. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was one of the presidents of it in 1930. Yeah. And I found it so strangely that there was a pull to go in and study there, because remember I'd had this strange experience and I was really paying attention to coincidences. Uh-huh. And so I studied there for a year. And what reminded me to tell you is, because we were talking about meditation, one of the entry things you do in the College of Psychic Studies is you learn meditation for the purposes of perceiving information, for example, about other people. And I was really good at it. Like the very first class, we all picked a piece of paper out of a pile where somebody had smoked it. They basically hold a flame under the paper and waggle it around, and it makes a random smoke pattern. Yeah. So everyone in the class picked a paper out, and we got assigned pairs. And my partner, so she gives me her piece of paper with this smoke on it. And all I did, so you meditate and then you look at the paper. And I talked probably like 20 minutes telling her all this stuff. And it was so accurate about her life. It was freaky. And so I think maybe getting to support what you said about the brain needs energy. And when we meditate, maybe why it's so good is our physical body, the rest of our body that's not the brain is in a relaxed state. So more energy is going to the brain. Maybe. But I was able to perceive stuff that was accurate about this person after the meditation. And they were like, okay, we're putting you in the intermediate class, and I had really quite a lot of success and it was very fascinating to learn. And they taught you, because it's the College of Psychic Studies, they taught you all these ways that you can perceive information kind of out of nowhere.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you meditate?
I'm supposed to meditate way more, especially since the accident. I'm trying to do it every day, a little bit of meditation. Good. I got all this stuff behind me, you see. I used to make fun of crystals and all that stuff. But then the more I learned about science, weirdly, it took me to crystals that I used to think is hokey and new agey, and I would poke fun at people wearing all these crystals. But I saw a vision in my experience in 2012, and it was all these energy balls laid out in a very flawless lattice grid. So I became fairly obsessed with trying to get to the bottom of what that grid was. And of course, that took me down the route of science. And I found that certain crystals, all crystals have a flawless molecular sort of matrix structure to them. And it repeats infinitely.
Absolutely.
And so I was looking at the crystals that had the same lattice grid that I saw in my experience. And so I got into crystals and collecting crystals.
Wow.
And then it became that in our bodies, we actually have a level of like crystal, right? Like liquid crystal in our actual body, which again made me start to be more open to the theory of us having a connection to computers and to software. Because like part of what's actually in our body, you would know, where is the crystal? Is it in our blood? Liquid crystal. Is it in our blood or something? There's something in our bodies. And it literally is what you have in like your LED computer screen.
Really?
Yeah. There's something in our body that's like conductive, like the little crystal of a radio. And we can receive, we're like big transmitters or transmitters and receivers. So it's just one of the theories that I sort of happened upon. But yeah. Have I exhausted all of our theories?
But I'm going to look for the holographic theory.
Yeah, holographic universe.
I'm going to check that, yes.
Another thing that pops into my head about artificial intelligence was when I started to look up that kind of thing a few years ago, I was pretty shocked to see, although I suppose it's not a surprise, that some of the biggest employers of this technology was the adult industry, like making of literally sex dolls.
Oh, really? Oh,
yes, to make women artificial intelligence, to make robot dolls for the sex trade.
Yes.
These were big. This was a big part of where the development was going. Is that true?
Yeah. Again, it's interesting because, again, I mean, I wrote an article recently about that, saying that algorithm in love won't win. Because, again, the same thing. Yes, we'll certainly use, I mean, when I say we, maybe, not maybe you and I, but anyone will be able to use a sex doll in the future with a lot of things that are so much better than the sex toy, but it's not going to replace love. Just because, again, to replace love, you need to have a machine that have feelings, empathy, so much more many things that a machine cannot do. You see my point? And that will never be able to do it.
But don't you think that let's say if you look at our point in time now for a second as being primitive, where people in 1,000 years will look back on us and they'll go, wow, look how they treated animals. Look how abusive they were. Look at the inequality in the world. They would look at our civilization and think those guys were primitive. They're using technology to make a sex doll. You know. So, I mean, by that time, don't you think they could have figured out how to program all of those algorithms for empathy and love?
They might be able to write algorithm to simulate, but not to feel. You see my point? You can simulate sadness. You can simulate, let's talk about sex doll. You can simulate a sex doll, which, by the way, as you say, are mostly women. Which is a shame, but it is what it is. So let's say that you can program a sex doll who can say many words to please her husband, her partner, whatever. But this doll will not be capable of feeling it. Will not. You see my point? And this, to me, makes a huge difference when we talk about real love. You know, I want to have a relationship with someone who feels something for me, you know, not who can simulate something for me. So this is a big, big difference to me.
What if it was so evolved, though, that the being itself, the artificial being itself, believed what it was feeling? Because it was all programmable.
No, I don't believe in that. No,
that's
right. Sorry. But you know what? Hopefully we can time travel pretty soon and we'll go like 1,000 years from now, and then we'll see what will happen. But I don't believe in that.
What's the freakiest thing you've encountered that actually does exist right now when it comes to technology, where you even feel like, wow, I'm living in the future?
I'm always impressed by what we can do in medical applications. I think it's just amazing, you know. Again, the surgeon is there in the room, but there are so many little robots technologies that they use to make surgery safer, better, you know, for the patient to heal faster. I mean, I'm totally impressed. I remember when I was in Boston, I visited an OR, you know, in the MGH, the Massachusetts General Hospitals, and I remember it was like to me it was sci-fi. So many computers and little robots, you know, and they were, you know, they're using those things to decrease the time duration of operation, to make surgery safer, to, you know, all the things. And I was like, wow.
Well, tell me what part the robot was actually doing. Like, is he cutting people over?
So I don't know exactly, but I know that there are things to cut, to also to, how to call it?
Stitch it up?
Yeah, very, you know, much better than if we were doing it, or so many other things, you know, like, I think I'm very impressed by it. And I think it's only the beginning. We will be able to do so many amazing things, you know, in terms of medical applications, you know.
I mean, I guess LASIK, what they do on the eye is pretty incredible, isn't it?
Laser.
With people's vision.
Yes, I mean, laser, it's a huge step, you know, for surgery, for, as you say, eye surgery and many other things, you know. It's huge, yeah.
Well, Aurélie, I feel I've quizzed you and grilled you enough. I'm so grateful that you took time to come out today.
Thank you.
And if people want to sort of, you know, look you up, do you have like a social media or a website or anything?
I recommend people to just follow me on Twitter.
Okay.
if they Google Aurélie Jean, on Google, they might find the Twitter.
I will make sure that that's all on my blog page for you at the Grey Escape.
Really, thank you and thanks to Arnaud for giving me the opportunity to talk and hopefully people will do math, will learn about science, artificial intelligence, and not be scared anymore.
Wow, it's just really, really fascinating. So my brain is on fire right now.
Good.
Thank you, Aurélie Jean. Thank you again, Aurélie Jean. As always, if you want to get in touch with Aurélie or learn more about her, I will have links for her deets at thegrayscape.com. And while I think of it, if you need to send money overseas and transfer currencies, then go to thegrayscape.com/cash, where you can get a free international money transfer. You can send up to a value of £500 or whatever your currency equivalent is for free, no fees, by going to thegrayscape.com/cash. Thank you guys for hanging in there with my crazy schedule of this podcast. I really appreciate it. I am grateful for all the emails I get. Feel free to go and like The Grey Escape on Facebook. Subscribe on iTunes if you have time to post a rating and review. That always gives me the warm fuzzies. So thank you. Thank you 1,000 times over. In every quantum field, I'm grateful that you're listening to this show. Take care, everyone. Be well, be creative, do what you love. And I hope to be back soon with you all right here on The Grey Escape.